Hello and welcome to today's video. We're going to recap the finals that just finished up. So, predicted T1 3-2. T1 ended up winning 3-2 in a back and forth affair that certainly had different vibes to each game. On the board here, you see that I even was taking notes at the beginning of the series, but to be honest, I got into this series to the point where I just stopped taking notes and really just took it in for what it was. And I won't lie, I'm not an emotional um, watcher in that I don't, get up and get excited really or really make any sort of reaction to plays. Frankly, plays are what they are to me. Of course, some are better than others, but I don't allow a play to take over how I feel. But I will not lie that Faker's alties on Silas with Rakan alti were extremely meaningful in Game 4. And then also in Game 5, his decisions on Galio were outstanding. I thought he played excellent League of Legends, and he was the MVP of this series. There's no way around that. I thought T1 would win with Carrier being a difference maker against On, but it was Faker literally taking this team on his back, bailing them out at times in games 4 and 5, and winning this one. Owner, what a fabulous series out of him as this entire tournament. He's taken a step forward in his development and quite possibly has entered that conversation of maybe one of the best junglers in the world, because he did perform at a high level on the biggest stage throughout this tournament, and especially in Game 5 on the Xin Zhao. He ends up having the best KDA, 12-8-24 for T1. Now, Guma leads in damage, but frankly, Guma played like crap in this series, in my opinion. At the end, yes, on the Xayah, he comes through, but if he doesn't play like hot trash in the beginning of this series, getting caught out as first blood the first two games, struggling mightily against Elk completely outplaying him for the beginning half of this series into Game 3 in Hell. If it wasn't for maybe Carrier on the Poppy being a big difference maker alongside the Xayah in Game 5, who knows what happens if Elk on the Kai'Sa can really get going. Frankly, Guma in this series, although he leads in damage with 28%, 17, 11, and 14, I felt at times they were going to win in spite of him, not necessarily because of him, to be frank. As well, the drafts were absolutely terrible by T1 to start this. I mean, hell, I'm in my notes here. Literally, I don't even want to reference notes because I stopped doing them. But bad draft. And when they drafted Carrier Braum, I said, this game's over. This is over. And frankly, I thought, hell, this series, if they're going to come in thinking this way, it's over. Because you cannot put Carrier on a champion like that. Carrier is your facilitator. He's the aggressive player. We saw the Renata plays when he would flash in. Like, that is who Carrier is. You have to unleash Carrier to have his full potential. And eventually they allowed to pick him things that were going to help the team succeed, and it came through for them and was a big reason why they won, the adaptation and draft. You see the tempo change in this series as well. Although I will say Knight did lead BLG in damage, 11, 9, 28, 29%. We see them adopt Galio twice and then leave it behind after a loss after winning Game 3 and go with the Smolder and try and go from... So BLG, I mean, I don't have the times of the games for the entire Worlds, but let's just think about the way these teams play tempo-wise. BLG, high tempo, high kill games. T1, not necessarily that case going into this one. So if you want to go and you want to play a game of scaling against T1, that's going into the LCK breadbasket. That's how the LCK are going to succeed. And they end up beating them as a result. That game goes on for a while, and T1 find a way. Game 5, BLG drafts a dive composition, a composition that has to go in and make things happen. And although they start the game, and get first blood once again, they might have had first blood in all 5 games, they did not really turn it into anything. T1 actually get a nice lead on Guma over Elk in the bot lane. Like I said earlier, the pressure from Carrier's Poppy and Owner was definitely a difference. And then, T1 kind of let them back into the game. That gold lead became less than 1,000 after the mid game as we started getting to the late game. But you are now in an area where T1 thrive. Like this is a macro game now. This is not a slugfest like BLG are used to playing at Worlds in this tournament, and it just T1 win the team fights and Faker comes through. He's the one that made the plays. BLG drafted a composition in Game 5 that had to make plays, and they did not pull the trigger enough to get it done. Early on in the series, they were, which makes me wonder, did the pressure get to them? And I don't like throwing choking allegations at players because, frankly, I think it's foolish and nonsense. However, I will say that BLG changed the way they played over this series from the beginning to end. They were not as aggressive. And I honestly, I think that was to their detriment because they drafted a composition in Game 5 to go in and make things happen, and they simply did not do enough of that. And you can say, well, look at how T1 drafted. That's why you need to go in. You have to get it going before these players get online and get tanky, and you can't kill them anymore. Yeah, you tried to go in on Zeus and Zeus in the top lane, and that was really what kind of put T1 in the driver's seat and in control of the wheel for the rest of the Game 5. But Zeus, they try and go in on Zeus. Galio, Faker comes to the rescue, doesn't die. We see multiple kills up there because of it for T1 as they turn it because they just didn't have enough damage anymore because BLG did not make enough happen in the early game. And, I mean, they threw it away. They had a chance to win this series. The split, so control-wise, whoever was ahead, there was not a lot of back and forth games. People were ahead for long periods of time. Yes, I think there was one game in particular where the Gold League did swap in the mid to late game and then swap back. But otherwise, it was very one-sided, these games, in terms of control. Game 1, BLG were ahead for 100% of the game. Game 2, T1, 93%. BLG respond, 93% in Game 3. Game 4, 84-16. Game 4 was the closest one. You'd think it was Game 5 because of the kills scored and the way things went. But Game 4, actually, in terms of control and how the team shared gold lead and objective control, it was the closest. Game 5, 91% in T1's favor. Like, T1 were really not far behind in that series at all, that game at all. And overall, it's 57-43, a close one in general because each game people were just ahead for the majority of it. I mean, it was just what a series by Faker. What a Game 4 and Game 5 by Faker. He took control. He bailed his team out. They give Ben Jackson Game 5, and Zeus is like, fine, let me play my Gragas. You literally gave BLG their best picks. I can only imagine what people were saying that were BLG fans going into this and into Game 5 after draft saying, oh, this is, they just handed us a win, this and that in the third, and now after the series is done, they call it scripted because they're spineless and they can't handle how this fucking shit works. And that their players just simply couldn't show up. I mean, it's just a joke. Fans do that, but it's disgusting. But either here nor there, it was a great series. We got a 5-game series. We don't have many of them in finals. After last year getting a 3-0, stomp, this is a 5-game series that went back and forth, went down to the wire, T1 win. And you as a fan of the game itself, I really don't think you can be disappointed by this result. Nameplates are what people are going to, that's what's affecting people's emotions and shit like that. But, in terms of gameplay and competitiveness, we got a very competitive finals, and that's what you want on finals day. I'm so happy that it was on Saturday. Halfway through the week, I still thought this series was going to be on Sunday. I wouldn't have been able to watch it. Wouldn't have been able to, do this video until Monday or late Sunday night, and it would have just been much later than I would have liked it to be. Was able to watch the ceremony. I saw a lot of people were upset with the ceremony. I thought it was fine. I don't really care too much about this, that, and the third. I do think it's kind of cool that Linkin Park did a League of Legends song. I mean, that is what it is. I like that it was a rock song, metal, because, that's my preference for music. I mean, some people aren't going to like it because it's not their preference, but I'm sure over the years they've had their musical genre showcased, which would mean, what goes around comes around. It'll be your turn another time. Like, grow the fuck up. But a lot of people upset with that. I think that it's just just goes to show you just how immature some of the community is. But regardless, what a great series. What a moment for T1. What a moment for this roster. Personally, I thought this roster was going to be done regardless of how this event ends. But depending on how much money they make, I mean, if T1 make a good amount of money and these players are content with going back at it again for a fourth year, I mean, this roster is the greatest of all time. It was the greatest of all time before today. And it's the greatest of all time now, even more so. Like this notion, because they didn't win an LCK championship, that they aren't the best roster of all time, I think is foolish, because this roster is the only one to do what it's doing at Worlds in general. It's just showing up when it matters, not when, you have your domestic finals. Maybe you're in a region where domestic finals is all that you can get, so that's why you support domestic finals so much more than international results, because hell, international results don't matter to you because it's hopeless, so you care more about domestic results and, maybe farce tournaments like EWC or, I mean, MSI is better than it used to be, but, I mean, these formats could be better, but the fact is, this is the best roster of all time. What a performance by Faker. What a performance by Owner. Just an excellent series out of them. BLG tried their damnedest. I was rooting for Bin and Elk. I've been a fan of Bin and Elk for a long time. Bin's Fiora, Pentakill will stick in my mind forever. Elk, I've liked Elk since he was with Team Wii many years ago. So, it was unfortunate to see them lose. But it is what it is. It is what it is. Those guys just didn't show up in Game 5. And in the end, that's the result. So thank you for watching. If you like the video, like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter. Join the Discord. Become a YouTube supporter. And hope to see you again tomorrow.